DataCorps President Angel Rojas joins this week to break down news from Kaseya and a story on things you can do to make yourself stickier with customers. Plus, a special guest interview with Rose Computer Technology Services, David Rose, and ChannelPro's Colleen Frye. It's ChannelPro Weekly number 229, the Anti-Clippy. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly episode 229. My name is Matt Whitlock, Technology Editor, Online Director, and your host of this fine show for people like you, the VARs, the IT integrators, the managed services providers, the French sous chefs. Yes, even if you are a sous chef, you are in the right place because everybody could stand to learn about IT and learn about what these fine IT providers do, because maybe that's something you want to do too. You never know. You're always in the right spot, and we always have a lot of fun and great interviews. And so we're really excited to have you with us. Also excited to have the man of the hour, the man who, until today, I thought kept the trains running on time. We might learn later that that's not actually the case. It's someone else who does that. So, Rich, have you been lying to me all of these years about keeping the trains on time? By the way, Executive Editor Rich Freeman is here.
No, I have not actually. What I am guilty of is not correcting you, because I never told you I'm the guy, but you've been saying that over and over again on the show, and I've never stepped in to say, well, maybe not so much.
So you don't keep the trains running. Are you like just like the ticket taker? Is that all that you do now?
Yeah, exactly. I count the money.
You're the guy who walks up and down the train with a little thing. And I always notice when you have I don't know if you've ever ridden a train. I don't know how, I haven't ridden a train in years, but back in the day, like you'd hand the guy your ticket, and he didn't just like punch it like one time. You know, like he's got that thing in his hand and he's like, and he punches it like 17 times, and then he goes to the next one and he punches it like 17 times. Is that like necessary? Did they actually have to punch it that many times? You would know this because this is apparently what you do.
I do not know this, although I've got to imagine if you've got this thing in your hand that clicks in a very satisfying way, you'd be looking, everything looks like something to punch a hole in.
Well, now that we have that out of the way, I am going to have to try to see if I can get us an actual conductor on to explain the process of punching tickets and why they have to do it that many times. But maybe it's just because it does make a very satisfying sound, and that's a good enough for me, I guess. Anyway, before we get even more off topic and talking more about trains and the lives of conducting and riding the rails, Rich, why don't you tell us what you've been up to this week?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to quarantine. Hopefully it doesn't show or you don't hear it, but you're looking at a COVID-19 positive fella here. And you know what? I'm so grateful and thankful. Very mild symptoms. I've been working probably more than I should, and as a result, I'm a little more fatigued on a Thursday than I might be otherwise. But that's what I've been doing, Matt. I've been home in isolation, hydrating and covering a lot of the news that we're going to be talking about in a little bit.
You know, other than the fact that there's like 17 people behind you in hazmat suits and like laser prods to keep you in your apartment, I never would have even known that you were COVID infected.
If I hadn't told you. Yep.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, I'm glad you're feeling well. I'm glad it's mild. That's always a good sign. And thank goodness that it's not transmissible. Is that a word? Transmissible via electronic communications like what we're in here. So, folks, even though you're listening, you can't get COVID from Rich just by listening through headphones. Okay, so everyone's safe. Everyone's good. Whew. It's good to know about that. Rich, we are not alone, and I don't think he's COVID infected because he's actually out in the public, and there are not people with hazmat suits behind him. But I am so glad he's here. He is the president and CEO of DataCorps. It's a Tampa Bay MSP dedicated to the support and maintenance of business networks. He is a passionate technology enthusiast, obsessed with eliminating hassle, waste, and headaches of all things digital for his customers, and a whole lot more that we're going to learn about. Please welcome back to the show, Angel Rojas. Welcome, Angel.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
It's awesome you're here. It's awesome you're not COVID infected, unless you are.
Nope, I am not.
That's certainly a good thing. I'm glad about that. This is your second time on the show. You've been here before. I'm super excited to have you back. Excited to be back?
I am thrilled to be back. I've been looking forward to this. Rich sent me the invitation a few weeks ago, and I was like, you know what? I got to do this. And this morning I realized, oh my goodness, we record on video too, and my hair's not cut. I better go get a haircut. So right before we started recording, I went and got a haircut.
One of our sharpest co-hosts in a while too. You're looking great, looking snazzy,
Thank you.
looking like you don't have COVID. That's always a good thing. But it really is great to have you back. You were
Thank you
last
for
on
having me.
you were last on an episode 170, so that was December of 2020, in the thick of the whole pandemic stuff. I mean, that would kind of went about a year where we were like all mired in it. So really good to be here. For those folks who may have missed that particular show, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do?
Sure. So I'm, as you said, I'm the president and CEO of DataCorps Technology Solutions, and we're based out of Tampa. We've been in business since 2003. We service small and medium-sized clients, and basically we focus on IT risk management. So we work with our clients to eliminate the risk or mitigate it or transfer it with doing IT. And I think last episode, I think it was rapid deconstruction is what we talked about. So I'm still flying my RC helicopters, still doing all that competition and all that fun stuff, and still have not done any rapid deconstruction. So that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. I'm glad to hear about that. Now, so like we said, you were last on in December of 2020. Everything was still kind of in pseudo lockdown mode. Everything was still like that. How has it been in 2021 and now here in 2022? At least I think that's what year it is. I don't know. I can't tell anymore. How has business been? Is your area kind of like, have you come out of it well? Are you on top? Did you grow during the pandemic like a lot of MSPs did? Tell us a little bit about that.
We saw a lot of extra work. Our area, Florida, we did not lock down as hard as other areas in the country did. So our hotel clients really took the brunt of the hit. Those folks had 30 to 40% layoffs. They saw massive drops, but in business. But then all of a sudden, business just boomed for them. So for us, the last part of last year, when everybody was kind of starting to come out of the slumber, they had been sitting on a bunch of projects like Wi-Fi projects and things like that, and all of a sudden, all of them want projects done very quickly. So the last quarter of 21 and the first quarter of 22 have been just a madhouse. We do have other clients where they saw a boom. So our home services vertical, which a little bit of that is what I talked about in the ASCII tour in 2019 and servicing that vertical. Those folks went gangbusters because now air conditioning, plumbing, all those things are absolutely critical when you're working from home. You cannot tolerate it being down at all. So those folks, they actually went through a tough time because just like us, it's very difficult to find employees, and short of just poaching the employees, that really wasn't an option for them because everybody needed employees. And so they had to actually bring up a whole new workforce and train them and get them going, and do that without the benefit of doing it in person because everybody was concerned with COVID. So they had some interesting challenges, and that was fun to help them through that and help them to grow. So again, it's just been every part of the country went through this very differently, and we were no exception.
Very interesting. So it was a lot of your customers. Are they more in like the hospitality kind of business, or did you still do a lot of like getting employees working remotely? Was it a lot of that too?
Yeah, at the beginning, it was a ton of getting people working remotely, and then 21 was getting people back to the office, or helping clients determine what they were going to do, if they were going to keep part of the workforce in the office or send part of the workforce home, and so it was just it was interesting. We were glad to get people to the office because then we didn't have to take care of home computers. And so that added an extra burden to our team to have to troubleshoot a home computer problem. But getting them back to the office was a very welcome thing to do. It tended to kind of just cause us to dip a little bit in utilization. And then that wave of the hotels coming back online, it was like, okay, we breathe and then go.
And so with a lot of the project work that you've been doing the last, 6 months, have you been finding that the supply chain issues making it difficult to get product, or are you managing to get all this stuff done regardless?
Yeah, no, it's been hard. You have to explain to your clients that there is a problem, and that the way to fix it is to accept quotes very quickly and not look at the price, and just the price is the price. A lot of times, we will check a supplier and there's, 40, 50 laptops there. So we send a quote. When we get back to place the order, there's 10 and we needed 15. So, so we have to be very wise about timing. And if we find stock, so we used to kind of be very narrow with the brands that we used, and now we're having to be a little bit wider and say, look, if you have a switch, we'll take it. If you have a laptop, we'll take it. And so that's been the way that we've navigated through that, and our clients understand, because we've got roofing companies that can't get shingles. I had to have my roof redone in the house last year, and they said you can have any color you want as long as it's a shade of brown. So I got to pick from 4 shades of brown, and that was what was going on the roof. And then we had to paint the house, and so we got to pick from a few shades of brown to paint the house to match the roof. So so everybody's dealing with this supply issue in many different ways. We had windows. Last year was an expensive year with the house. We had windows put in, and it was 7 months to get the windows built. So from the day I placed the order, it was 7 months to the day that they started putting that in place. And even then, that was an interesting story. They measured one of the windows wrong, and I ended up with on the coldest night of the year, I ended up with a giant hole in our master bedroom. And all that was protecting us from the cold was a sheet of cellophane. And that night, I had to sleep with my protection nearby because there had been some break-ins in the neighborhood. And lo and behold, that night I heard voices out in the patio, and I was like, really, we're going to do this night? So I'm locked and loaded, ready to be Rambo. And it turns out that my neighbors across the way were in their patio talking very loudly, and it projected across the yard into our yard. And so that was an interesting night. So supply chain issues can kill.
Apparently so. Nothing like the protection of a 1 millimeter thick layer of plastic.
Right.
Right.
Right. So our window supplier got a very precisely worded email the next morning.
That's awesome. So, well, and you know what? One of the reasons why we're having a lot of supply chain issues is because of not only just part shortage, but it comes down to a lot of times a labor issue. There's just a huge labor. Now, have you been able to keep your business staffed?
We are right now probably about 1 or 2 people understaffed. So finding IT labor has been interesting. It's very hard to find. So one of the projects I've been working on internally here is to build a development process and an onboarding process for new team members. And what I've determined is there are other industries that we can cross over, like the medical field, where folks have a lot that troubleshooting mentality and that technical mentality, but they're applying it in a different domain. And so we've been able to take a couple of folks from that industry and train them to do IT, and they're doing awesome. So that's been a big focus of mine. I said, you know what, I'm not going to continue looking in the same places that everybody's looking. I'm going to go look somewhere else.
That's neat. And do you have like any kind of incentives that you're using to kind of find talent outside of the IT world, or how are you finding it?
The great part about the healthcare business is that they're all burned out from COVID, and a lot of them are leaving the industry. So I don't have to put out an incentive. They find me.
Wow, really interesting. That's super cool. Well, neat stuff. You're still flying your helicopters?
Absolutely.
You haven't broken one, you said, so that's good.
Nope.
But
nope, I don't like breaking them. Not that they're expensive to fix. It's just annoying to have to wait to get it fixed and get it back up in the air. I'd just rather just fly them and enjoy them. So I did, you know what? I did come close. So I was showing off to somebody in a fun fly in Virginia. And I came in and the wind was not, I did not come in with the right direction with the wind, and I was coming in without power. It's called an auto rotation in a helicopter. And I got real close to the ground. Everything was looking fine, and a gust hit it. And if it hits it from the wrong direction, it sinks. And so I think I was about 10 feet from the ground, and it was coming at me, and it sunk, and it was coming at me and the guy, and he's getting ready to run, because when this thing comes in, you know, you got blades spinning, it's going to do some damage. And I just stayed calm. I just finished flying it. It flew right past my face, and it just hit the ground, and I just let it slide. It slid over to where two other guys were sitting in lawn chairs flying their helicopter, landed like right smack in front of them. They look at me and they're like, what's going on? But the people that saw it said that was a good save, and it was. So it came close to getting wrecked, but not quite.
Wow, I bet you look like an expert flyer at that point. Like, yeah, what's up? I can do this.
After I changed my pants, I was a little proud of myself, but yeah.
Awesome stuff. Did you pick up any other hobbies during the whole like COVID pandemic time period? Or
I actually did additive manufacturing or 3D printing. So I've become a bit of an avid 3D printer. And I fulfilled one of my childhood dreams, which was to become an inventor. So I did start doing a little bit of inventing. Last year, I made a lighting system for my RC helis with UV lights, so I can fly at night. And instead of the light being emitted and showing the LEDs on the helicopter, you can actually see the actual canopy flying in the middle of the night. So it looks like a canopy flying around, no blades or anything. And so that was pretty cool. And I'm actually working on a 3D printer that prints faster than others at a lower cost. So who knows if I'll be able to release that or not, but at the end of the day, it's just fun to play around with it. I learned how to do CAD design. So now I understand why my clients need these high-powered workstations to run CAD. And each time mine locks up and I lose something, I get just as pissed off as they do. So I'm getting to get a little bit of that empathy for them. So, but it's been neat to pick up those new hobbies.
Yeah, you always wonder why they need these massive Xeon processors and these huge like AMD video cards, and it's like, oh, now I see why.
Yeah, now I'm sitting here like, yep, keep going. Yep, next processor. Oh, that's the one. That's the one. Yep, bigger. Yep, keep going. There you go.
Keep going. So tell us a few things that you've 3D printed that is interesting, other than your light system.
Do I have it here? Oh, I don't think I have it here, do I? I 3D printed a giant middle finger for a friend. So a friend of mine paid me $30 to 3D print a giant middle finger that we're sending to another friend in Seattle.
Seattle, you know, that's my hometown. You got to send us a picture of that at least. Maybe we can work it into the show.
All right. Yeah. That was so funny. But yes, the giant middle finger was one of the funniest things I printed. I printed this articulated dinosaur looking thing that had a giant Trump head on it, Trumposaurus Rex. People just got a kick out of that, you know, and it's funny, no matter where somebody is on the political spectrum, some people point and laugh, yeah, he's a monster. And other people just pointed and laughed and like, that's cool. So that was fun to print. My kids, they all have like snakes. So it's neat when you 3D print, you can actually print an entire an entire object that moves, but you don't have to assemble it. It prints assembled. What's neat about that hobby is it kind of crosses over into IT, because yeah, the printer is the printer and it's got an SD card, but that's just where it starts. You can connect it to a Raspberry Pi, run custom firmware and all this other crap. And of course, I was like, okay, how quickly can I void this warranty? And every printer I got, within 30 minutes, the warranty was void. I had already done something to it. But yeah, you end up, if anybody here is listening that does 3D printing, you end up printing a lot of benchies. Benchies are this little boat. And the boat has, in one figure, is almost every difficult feature to 3D print. And so you print all these benchies to tune your printer, tune your filament and your settings and everything. So I probably printed thousands of these little boats. And then you print these calibration cubes, right? So most of the time I've been printing boats, calibration cubes, and parts for the printer.
print 3D printing more parts. It's like growing
Exactly.
itself.
It's a self-healing machine.
So what do you do with all these boats?
I give them to my kids. And after a while, they caught on. They're like, we don't want this crap.
I now have a full naval armada of these little boats.
Yeah.
We're going to go and invade a small country. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Well, very cool. Very interesting stuff. Always neat to hear about some of the stuff you do, because you definitely do a lot of really interesting things. So that's awesome. Very cool. Glad to have you here. And boy, do we got a great show ahead, and we should probably get plowing ahead. Otherwise, we'll just sit and talk to you the whole time. But we got a lot of stuff. Let me get my notes up because I moved them because I was looking at episode 170. So those are not stories we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about these stories. Kaseya, a lot about Kaseya. We're going to talk about the Datto acquisition and some big news that has hit the site around that. We're going to talk about some RMM releases at the Connect IT conference. We're going to talk about that as well. We're going to be talking about something about getting sticky. We'll get to that later on. Oh, we've got a really good interview coming up. David Rose from Rose Computer Technology Services. He's going to be here joining us, talking about some of the stuff that he does to get back in his community. Colleen Frye, Managing Editor at ChannelPro, is going to be here helping us with that interview. That's going to be great. You're not going to want to miss that. And a whole lot more. So strap in, folks. We've got a lot to cover, including some big news like this one. So Rich, Kaseya has been working on acquiring Datto. They announced that long ago, and I guess that's done. Is that true?
That is a done deal as of today. When we're recording this, we're about 5 hours after that deal, the announcement that deal is officially closed. Went out to the world. It's interesting too, because this was announced. Kaseya's agreement with Datto to acquire the company was announced April 11th, and at the time they said we're going to close this deal sometime in the second half of the year. We're not even into the second half of the year yet. It's been 73 days. Deal is done, folks. So as of today, Datto is part of Kaseya. Officially, it is a Kaseya business. It is still doing business under the Datto brand. They're still headquartered out of Norwalk, Connecticut. Tim Weller, who is the CEO at Datto, played an instrumental role in engineering this acquisition from the Datto side. He has decided to step away. But Rob Ray, Senior Vice President of Business Development, one of the most recognized, well-known, well-regarded figures in the channel, he's staying. As of today, as of right now, he is in charge of Datto. He runs Datto. His title hasn't changed. He is not the CEO. There's only one CEO at Cassaya. That's Fred Vicola. But Rob is running Datto, reporting into Fred at Cassaya. And Ryan Weeks, by the way, Matt, who joined us on the podcast for a bonus episode just a few weeks ago, he's the Chief Information Security Officer. I was told he's sticking around as well. So, I mean, a lot, that we have yet to see, have yet to know. This was announced on the last day of Kaseya's Connect IT conference in Las Vegas. And earlier in the week, I had an opportunity to interview Fred Vicola in connection with the Connect IT event. And he actually spoke about the Datto acquisition as well on stage during the keynote. And he said a lot of the things that he said to us at ChannelPro when I interviewed him back in April, which is we are not discontinuing any products. We're not, obviously we know now for a fact they're not getting rid of the brand. We're not dumping people. If people choose to go, obviously there's nothing he can do about that, but they're not going to be downsizing the organization as a way to recoup the investment. If anything, point of emphasis earlier in the week and today, now that the deal is done, they're going to be investing more in Datto. And that means that they're going to be investing more in the products, more in developers and engineers, and so on. They're going to be investing particularly in integrations. And one of the short-term benefits that Cassaya said Datto partners will see, if they also use Cassaya software anyway, is that there will be at least 17 integrations between Datto products and the Kaseya platform within the first month. So within a month of today, basically. And those will be integrations that connect, the RMM system, the PSA system, et cetera, as a for example, to IT Glue, the documentation system. There are a bunch of Datto partners out there who probably use IT Glue. They're going to have some integrations coming their way. Within 120 days, Kaseya says, there will be 100% commercial integration between Datto and Kaseya. And commercial integration in Kaseya's world kind of means that, we want people who use multiple products that we offer to have one bill, one account manager, a common licensing framework. They want doing business with Kaseya to feel as consistent as possible, even though they have all these different companies with different products and different names. So they're saying they're going to be 100% commercially integrated within 120 days. I don't know how far that goes. So, I mean, if you are paying a bill monthly right now to Kaseya and to Datto, I'm pretty confident within 120 days you'll have one bill. Are you going to have one account manager, et cetera? We'll see. But they're saying they're going to be 100% commercially integrated within about 4 months. One thing I'll say, I mentioned before that they have said in the past, and they said again this week, that they are not going to be discontinuing any of their products. One thing that came up in the conversation with Fred Vicola this week that he cited as evidence of this, apparently, and this was new to me, there are probably going to be some people in the audience who know this, but apparently a few weeks ago, if you were a Datto networking partner, you got a notification that Datto was canceling its line of network switches. And then within a few days, business days of that, I think 2 business days of that, you got a notification saying change of plans, we're not discontinuing the switches. And that is a direct result, basically, of Kaseya saying, we're not canceling any products. We're very excited about the Datto networking line. It's a strategic part of this deal for us. So, back off that plan there. One last thing. So I mentioned you got integrations coming, you got commercial integration coming. Datto says they're going to be investing in all the products, not canceling any of them. The other thing that they said this week is that if you are a Datto customer, you are going to be paying lower prices going forward. And the commitment basically was that they're going to be lowering the list price of Datto products on average by 10%. Now, for some of their products, like the switches I was just discussing, it's going to be closer to 0% because those were already pretty inexpensive to begin with. For other products, though, it could be as much as 25%. Kaseya says their products on average are 1/3 less expensive than competing products in the same category. And that's a part of their business strategy, and they will be extending that to Datto and its product line. So look in the weeks and months ahead for the bill for Datto products to go down by an average of 10% and maybe as much as 25%.
I don't think that many people are going to complain about that.
I sure won't. So it's interesting. I guess the strategy is to start, because for so many years we've seen consolidation in the industry, and that scares a lot of folks like me because competition drives innovation. So seeing all of this consolidation can be a little bit scary. Initially, the reaction in the MSP community was not great. There were many concerns about products that had not advanced much since the Datto or since they were acquired by Kaseya. So, personally, I've been following this closely because we are a Kaseya customer. We're a ConnectWise customer as well. And so we want to see good, healthy competition. Maybe the next iteration will be a round of price decreases. That might be a good thing for MSPs since everything is going up. I know my peers are seeing, sometimes triple the increase on insurance renewals and items like that. So to see some of our tools reduce in price, that would be great. And I would love to see some pressure across the industry to reduce the pricing of some of the tools.
Well, it's counter to what we see in just the world at the moment, where like our pricing for everything is going up. significantly. And you did mention that it's going up in certain areas, like in like insurance and cyber insurance for sure. But it's good to see something going down in price. That's nice. Rich, any why do that though? So okay, so like I get it's cool that it's happening, but like they don't have to do that. So why are they doing that?
Because they feel like it gives them a competitive advantage. Basically, they feel like they are capitalized, they have the finances to do that, to afford that, and it makes it harder on their competition. Basically, if you can get functionality that is as good or better, Kaseya would say, for a third less, well, why are you paying more for somebody else's product? We will talk in a little bit about a new or an updated system of theirs that maybe illustrates this competitive strategy in a really concrete way a little bit.
I don't want to dwell on this story for too long, but why the rush to get it closed? Because we did expect it to take a lot longer than this, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, they were certainly, I was wondering about that today, actually. Did they just do like a brilliant job of managing expectations, and they gave themselves, 6 months of wiggle room if it took longer than they thought? Or did this just go a whole lot more smoothly than they expected it to? I really don't know. But I mean, there's certainly no reason to delay the process, right? I mean, if you've done something that you think is going to be a great thing for your company, you want to actually start benefiting from it right away. And at Datto, until today, and I didn't mention this, it kind of goes without saying, until today, Datto was a publicly traded company. This is no longer true. Kaseya is privately held. Datto was listed on the New York Stock Exchange under the acronym or trading symbol MSP. Not there anymore. This is a privately held company now. But because they were publicly traded, there were a lot of limitations around what Kaseya could do with Datto until the deal was finalized. And why not get that out of the way quickly and start moving forward on this?
Yeah, for sure. And so go ahead, Angel. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it has anything to do with recent market trends. I could certainly see Datto shareholders being motivated to sell while the market is a little bit more favorable than to let the market continue to go down and potentially put negative pressure on the sale. Sounds like it was a smart financial move for that to go through quickly.
So, Angel, when you see something like an announcement that a line of switches are going to get discontinued, and then another announcement days later that, oh, sorry, that's not happening, does that put any worry in you, or is that kind of stuff expected when companies are merging together and maybe not the left hand isn't talking to the right hand?
Yeah, it can be concerning because it sounds like there's definitely a communication issue in there. And it could be, something as simple as, look, this was already in the works, the discontinuation of the switches, and a deal this massive has so many moving parts that could have been a detail that was overlooked. And, somebody a while ago maybe talked about it at Kaseya and said, no, we want to keep that going. But that didn't get down to the business unit at Datto. Hey, we're going to keep this going. Don't make the announcement. And the announcement went out. So I'm guessing it was probably something innocuous like that and not a big deal. Again, this close to an acquisition, there's going to be a lot of chaos. So I would expect to see things like that. Now, absent the pressure of an acquisition, yeah, it would be a concern. And I would like to think that it is a positive outcome of the MSP community pushing back and saying, we like these products, you sold them, we want to continue supporting them, we want to continue selling them, our clients love them, they're great quality, keep it going. So no way to tell unless they maybe tell us what happened behind the scenes, but I would say it's probably more of a communication issue internally.
It was Larry's fault.
What was that?
It was Larry's fault. He wasn't supposed to send the email, and Larry sent the email, and he probably got in trouble for it. That's probably what happened.
Yeah, it's always chaos with Larry.
Always. Go ahead.
One last thing I do want to address, though, because you were saying, Angel, there are a lot of concerns in the partner community about the culture of Datto and products going away and so on. But one of the other things that people, MSPs have been concerned about, Datto partners have been concerned about, is the idea that they might be pushed into 3-year contracts. There's a fair amount of grumbling, dissatisfaction among Kaseya partners about contract lengths. And so when I was interviewing Fred Vicola a few days ago before I knew that this was all finalized, but I did kind of bring that issue up and say there's a lot of apprehension about that out there right now. What would you say? And what he said basically is, now that we are buying Datto, at that time it was pending. Now that we're buying Datto, we've kind of gotten under the hood a little bit. We've really gotten an in-depth look at their contract terms. And he said, actually, their contract terms and ours are pretty much identical. We both have a 3-year standard term with a 1-year option, if you prefer to have a 1-year option. And there's a price break that you would expect if you go 3 years versus 1 year. The big difference between Datto and Cassaya is that we're talking about like a 40% price break on the 3-year deal if you go with that versus the 1-year deal. So they are really kind of steering you towards, not forcing you necessarily, but steering you towards that longer term commitment. And so that puts an MSP in a position where it's up to me, I get to choose, but I'm choosing basically between the shorter commitment that makes me more comfortable and maybe paying more for the product than I was before, versus a longer commitment, which has obvious issues connected to it, and I'm paying what I was before, maybe even a little bit less. So, but there was no commitment, no discussion about Datto's contracts going forwards. I'm just kind of telling you how the contract issue looks from Fred's point of view, which is basically contracts actually aren't all that different. We've got this different discount structure. He's well aware, he said, of the fact that there are a lot of partners unhappy about it. And he said that, Kaseya is always open to input from partners and making things better when it can. And that was about as far as he went. So we will have to see what happens with Datto's contracts and whether or not the 100% commercial integration I was talking about before extends to contracts, and you start seeing that 40% discount on data products, et cetera, and you have to kind of think about that contract decision the same way.
Well, what do you say, Angel? If you were going to be offered a much bigger discount to take out a much longer contract term, is that something you would do as an MSP?
It's not just something I would do, it's something I regularly do. So if I have the option to get a discount and have a financial upside to committing long term, look, I'm not really just voting with my dollars, right? Whenever I bring a tool in like an RMM or a PSA, that tool's a big technical commitment. So, and that's a big business commitment. So independent of whether I signed a long-term contract or not, what really keeps me there is that my business runs on top of it. So if I can get an added value by committing long-term in the form of a discount, I'm going to take it. So I like that type of an incentive to take out a longer contract. I like the option to have 1 year if it's a tool that's easy to replace. One of Kaseya's products, ID Agent, it's not a tool that becomes a part of your integral thing. So, that wouldn't be as sticky of a tool. But if you're looking at the BMS or VSA product, those are tools that are not easy to replace. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time, and in some cases it can change business processes that have been put in place for a long time. So for me, then it becomes about numbers. So, and I get lots of channel vendors calling me every month asking me, hey, you want to switch? Well, is it the contract? No, it's not the contract, it's the work. I don't want to switch because I don't want to do the work all over again. I don't want to learn a new tool. And we talked earlier about already being understaffed and under a lot of pressure. Why would I add that kind of pressure to my team to switch, to learn a new tool, than to deal with data conversions? And, data conversions never go smoothly, no matter what they promise you. So, having that contract there for 3 years, the commitment's great. It gives, it'll give Kaseya a piece of paper that they can show somebody if they need to raise funding or anything. But at the end of the day, I'll take the money.
Well, I guess by that logic too, I mean, if it's not a tool that's easy to replace or to transition to, and you're going to be on it long term anyway, you may as well just commit long term and take the money in the process. Bingo. It makes sense to me. So Rich, but this is not all that Kaseya's got going on this week, because they were talking about closing the Datto acquisition. They're talking about the things that they're going to keep, talking about multi-year contracts and maybe higher discounts, all that kind of stuff. But they're also rolling something out. What is that?
Well, two things, actually, one of which is out now, and one of which is coming in November. Either of which we would be talking about on the show, even if the Datto deal these are interesting stories on their own. So in terms of the product that's out there now, it is an automated, quote unquote, utilization technology. It's a little bit hard to define exactly what this thing is, but basically it is an artificial intelligence powered technology that is now embedded within the Kaseya portfolio that will be looking for opportunities to unobtrusively suggest to you functionality that you're paying for but not using, training that would be beneficial to you if you're a technician, for example, that you haven't taken, and even, as we'll see in a moment, some support-related things that might help you take care of your customers a little bit better. I emphasized unobtrusively because, you know, this AI engine, they call it the Cooper Intelligence Engine. Cooper, by the way, is Fred Vocola's dog. Very intelligent dog, I'm told, and this is why they attached the name Cooper to the Cooper Intelligence Engine.
So what you're saying is they didn't model the AI after Larry, is what you're saying.
No. The Cooper Intelligence Engine and Cooper the dog, for that matter as well, are both the anti-Larry, I think we can safely say. But, you know, people hear, okay, there's this thing that's watching what I do, and it's suggesting, hey, maybe try this, maybe try that. Is it going to be like popping up on my screen and interrupting me and so on? And the answer is no. It's basically going to be available for you to look at, and I'm sure there will be, I'm a little fuzzy on exactly how it will kind of flag for you, hey, we've got suggestions, but it's not going to be sort of getting in your way, as I understand it, and interrupting you. And specifically what Vocola said during his keynote on Tuesday, and I quote, is, Cooper's not Clippy. So this is not a Clippy experience that you have to worry about.
I was just trying to make a Clippy reference. It was like, hey, maybe they could have a little thing that comes up and taps on the glass and says, it looks like you're trying to do this.
Yeah.
It looks like you're trying to restore a network. Would you like some help? No, get out of my way.
Yes. They knew enough not to go there. That's not how it's going to work. But so again, it'll be looking for things that it sees you doing that you could do faster, and this goes to a problem that every software vendor has. And I even as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about conversations I've had with Craig Fulton, who used to be the chief product officer at ConnectWise. And I don't know how many times I've heard him say that one of the great frustrations for him is talking to an MSP who asks him, "Well, I wish you had a way to X," and he's like, "We've had that for 4 years. You know, we told you about this 4 years ago." And every software vendor has this problem. They put a lot of time and effort and money into developing functionality, and people just don't know it's there. They don't use it, and that's because they're all busy, and it's hard to keep track of this stuff. So the idea is, if we've got this AI agent here that's flagging for you, hey, here's something you didn't know about, that might help people get more value out of the products that they've already purchased. But it'll go a little bit beyond that. I was kind of alluding to this before. It will, in some cases, provide advice that might actually have a beneficial impact, you know, a direct beneficial impact to your support for your clients. And the example that Mike Puglia, their chief customer marketing officer, used at one point, I believe it was him who spoke about this on stage, was it might notice that there's a user at one of your accounts who hasn't logged in for 6 months. And it might flag that for you, because that could mean that whatever, this person just isn't doing a lot on email or isn't doing a lot on the network. But it also could mean there's this account out there that you forgot to disconnect, and that's a security vulnerability, for example. So it will be kind of looking out for technical issues as well as issues just in terms of technician productivity. And in speaking of technician productivity, Cassaya says they believe that the Cooper Intelligence Engine will make technicians 10 to 15% more efficient on average. And before I go into product number 2, Matt, I'm going to pause and get some intake from you and Angel on that.
Angel, you excited about Kaseya Clippy?
As long as Kaseya Clippy doesn't get in the way of a fire or an emergency, I think that'll be cool. No, I like the idea of being able to have new functionality exposed, or even old functionality that we didn't know about exposed. But I hope it doesn't turn into a marketing tool. That is definitely something that I won't really appreciate personally, because again, when I sign into these tools, I'm there to work. I'm there to get something done. I'm not there to get marketed to, much less my texts. I don't really want my texts getting marketed to when they're in the middle of helping a client. Sometimes some of the pop-ups and some of the recommendations can get in the way of actually getting to the tool and getting the work done. So it will be exciting to see some of the suggestions. I hope they are delivered though with some discretion and the ability to maybe snooze them or turn them off, or at least review them in bulk, so that I can set aside a time each week maybe to review all the recommendations from my company and see how we can roll those out to my team.
Yeah, and we are making fun of Clippy and we're making fun of Microsoft, but like they deal with this probably more than anybody else. And if you look at just something like the Office Suite, there is so much functionality that people probably would utilize or could help them, but they have no idea it exists because it's really hard to discover. So like Clippy was obviously a very intrusive and not probably the right way to do that, but like, yeah, the problem is still there. And that's like, how do you get customers using tools better? And how do you get them to learn about functionality or see functionality that they may not know it exists? So this is pretty cool. I think it's neat.
Yeah,
it's free. It's just built into the products. I'll be curious to see if it gets built into the Datto products at some point soon. But yeah, if it's not getting in the way and it makes some helpful suggestions, it's certainly not costing you anymore.
Right, and it might save you money. And if they're saying it is going to make technicians more efficient, that ultimately saves you money in the long run, right? So I think it's pretty cool. It's fun that it's named after a dog. Because remember, also Microsoft had a little dog. Remember the little search dog that used to be in Windows XP? Do you remember that a long time ago?
No.
I think I suppressed my Windows XP memories.
I know. Well, they had the little search dog, and it was like kind of cute, but it was if you go and you would like turn it off, so you'd go and you'd like try to do a search and then you'd close the search, the little dog would like tuck its tail between its leg and like get all sad and like turn around and like walk away.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, it was like
I think I used to make the dog come out just so I could send it back and watch it go away and do the walk of shame.
You just love to torture that damn dog. It was the one time I was like, wow, I just don't want to search right now. I don't want to feel bad for turning the dog off. So, but hopefully this dog is better behaved and pretty cool. But Rich, is not all that's in this story. They're previewing something. What are they previewing?
Yeah, now this is something that won't be out there until November, but to me it feels like kind of a big deal. We'll have to see if it does what they say it does. But I'll set the stage for this a little bit, because we've spoken, I'm sure, multiple times on the podcast about the fact that the traditional, well-known, heavily adopted RMM systems out there are very much oriented towards physical and to some degree virtual endpoints, but basically the traditional world of networking and product support. And what we've seen, especially in the last 2 years, although it was happening before that, is SMBs, larger businesses, they're all racing into the cloud, and these traditional RMM systems aren't so good at managing stuff in the cloud. They're also not so good at managing IoT devices. And we know that IoT devices are proliferating in environments of all sizes right now. Network management tools, to some degree, are better at that. And most of them can at least identify that there's something out there connected to the network. And if you trace the cable, you'll determine it's a smart camera or something like that. There are other systems. Domot's network management system, for example, can actually kind of classify and identify specifically what's on there. But that's a whole separate product. That's a network management tool. The RMMs aren't great at IoT or cloud, and some of them aren't great at mobile devices. Some of them aren't great at printers and switches and routers and so on. So the next version of Kaseya's RMM system, which is called VSA, it's going to be version 10 of VSA. And because the marketing people couldn't resist, they're going to call it VSA X for 10. That is coming in November. And Kaseya says it will be able to support both traditional endpoints like PCs and servers and non-traditional ones, meaning mobile devices, networking gear, printers, IoT devices, native cloud applications, you name it. It will be one interface, basically, that will be able to do all of this stuff for you. Now, early last year, so, a year plus ago, they announced that they had introduced a framework, an RMM framework that was going to enable them to do this. And they were a little bit vague about, well, when are we going to see this? How are we going to use this? And so on. They just said, we've created a framework that's going to allow you to manage all of these different resources in one place. And then I didn't hear anything about it again until this week. And now I see what they were building and where they were planning to use it. Kind of a big deal, I think, because what we've talked about on the show before is that you've got these RMM systems that are not good at cloud, and then you've got all these other systems that are sort of born in the cloud from companies like Skykick and Nerdio and Augment and Better Cloud and Jump Cloud. Cloud is all they do. And I've been sort of curious to see, well, everyone in our audience has to manage cloud now. So who wins the race to that market? The smaller, less capitalized companies with less brand recognition, but they're more nimble, they can move faster, or these bigger companies with a lot more money, a lot more name recognition, big incumbent partner bases, but they've got a lot of these legacy products that they have to kind of drag along with them to the cloud. Who's going to win? I haven't seen any of the other really big RMM makers introduce anything quite like what Kaseya says it's going to have in a few months' time. And so this could be kind of a game changer in the RMM market, if, again, and we'll have to wait and see, if it really does what they say it's going to be able to do.
And he says it's not only a generational leap, but a quantum leap. Ooh. Kind of makes you think they should call their AI thing instead of Cooper, they should have called it Ziggy.
There you go. I'd have been all over that.
Were you a big Quantum Leap fan back in the day?
Oh yeah, loved the show. Loved it.
It could have been characterized by like a guy smoking a cigar, like Al, in a bad Hawaiian shirt. Oh,
just have him sitting in the corner, smoking a cigar, waiting for your command.
That's right. All of these references, now it's just a lost opportunity. That's really too bad. I mean, this sounds great. So I understand some of this. Angel, you are far better to comment on where they're taking this and what you see and where they're going.
Yeah, it would be good to see something that is not one of my biggest complaints, I guess, in the sense of what being an MSP has become is that it's a patchwork of vendors and tools. And so training new people into the industry, it can be challenging because, okay, for these things we go here, for these things we go there, but don't go there for this, for that you need this other thing. And to see somebody finally saying, okay, we need to kind of bring all this in, right? It's good to see that. I can also understand, we mentioned legacy applications and whatnot. I use ConnectWise Automate for my RMM, and it is a legacy application. And so I'm very curious to see, how ConnectWise continues to develop that over the years, especially in light of VSAX. These acquisitions that are happening, one of the challenges is to see then all these products come together, and you've got Kaseya's got a great breadth of products now under their command, but at some point you got to ask the question, how many RMMs do you need to own? from a from a portfolio standpoint, and now I bet that's the question that Kaseya and ConnectWise are both answering, and really, how do you get that's why I think that pricing strategy that we discussed before might be how you get folks to go from the legacy products over to the newer products. And that might be smart of Kaseya to say, hey, we're going to release VSAX, and it would be definitely more efficient, capital efficient for them to not have to support other products. So make that one lower cost, do a bang up job of providing a greater feature set that doesn't need other tools. Sure, there's going to be some ancillary vendors like the ones that you mentioned that would be a little upset that now their client base might be drying out, but that's capitalism, right? There's always going to be a winner, there's always going to be a loser, and maybe they come up with innovation that keeps their client base very loyal, and I hope they do, because again, I love to see competition because it does drive that innovation. But Kaseya does have a big challenge ahead, and that is, supporting all of these separate lines of business is going to be expensive. So maybe we'll see. Maybe that's part of the big picture. Release this great product that's got a lot of great integration, and then offer a 10 to 25% discount over the competition. That could be a great fight to watch.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting thought about a way forward for Kaseya on their RMMs. A few things in there I want to follow up on, because I still remember being on my way to the airport when I first saw the press release announcing that Kaseya says, "Hey, we're going to buy Datto," and my first thought was, "You're going to have 2 RMMs, 2 BDRs, 2 PSA." Does that make sense? And I spoke about it with Vicola that week, and he addressed it directly on stage during his keynote because he knows people are thinking about this. And what he said this week basically was they've kind of done the math, and if they were to cut the overlapping products, the RMM, PSA, BDR overlap, if they were to eliminate one product line or the other, they believe it would save them $20 million a year on product development and support costs. And he said that sounds like a lot of money, but in the context of what Fred said was $1.8 billion of revenue a year and $500 million of profit a year, it's not that big an amount. And it's going to, he said, pee off, I will say piss off, thousands of customers, some of whom are going to take their business elsewhere. I mean, basically, that to save that $20 million and then potentially lose a lot more than that doesn't make a lot of sense. So this was the argument that Kaseya has been consistently making for 73 days now, basically, about why they are not going to eliminate products in those categories. Now, to your point, Angel, could they make switching to VSA, say, from Datto RMM, so appealing from a price standpoint or even a functionality standpoint that at some point down the road, it's like, well, we don't even have that many people using Datto RMM anymore, and so maybe we can kind of eliminate it. ConnectWise right now has 3 different RMM systems, one of which is their next generation system, just came out last November, and they, Jason McGee, their CEO, was emphatic with me. We are not canceling any of the other 2 systems that we have out there. But the way he put it basically was, we'll discontinue them when the market tells us it's ready for that. Like when nobody is using them anymore, and we're not going to be creating a problem for our MSP partners, well then sure, we'll standardize on the one new system. We'll see what happens around Kaseya, if they kind of have some strategy of that sort. The other thing I want to follow up on, because I hinted that I would talk about this earlier on when we were talking about the Datto acquisition, and we were talking about why does Kaseya discount its prices relative to its competitors. And this is an example, maybe, of the way they think about that, because we were talking about network management systems. Lots of MSPs use a network management system in addition to an RMM. In fact, Cassaya says that on average, an MSP uses 3.8 products, including network management solutions, operational technologies solutions. It takes 3.8 products to oversee all the sort of non-traditional endpoints that they're responsible for. And they think VSAX will replace all those. Instead of paying for 3.8 systems, you can just use this one system. And on top of that, you will actually be and Angel can kind of confirm this for us, basically. But Fred Vacola says that if you are using and he didn't specify a particular product, but if you're using a product like Logic Monitor or like Auvik, you're paying on average $5, $6, $7 for an agent. I didn't get the specific price sheet around VSAX. That's still in the works, but he did say that for these non-traditional endpoints that you're using a network management system to manage right now, the per agent cost under VSAX will be quote unquote under $1 versus what he said is $5, $6, $7 per agent. And he said for the mobile devices in particular, the cost per agent will be quote unquote pennies.
That's a game changer.
Understand.
That is a game changer. I think the last time I had, because we used to have Auvik, and one of the reasons I got rid of it was, it's a great tool set, but I can't sell this to clients. It just was too expensive. I can't understand for the life of me why I'm paying, $2-3 a month on a server, which is far more sophisticated than a switch. And yet I'm paying $10 a month on a switch, $10-15 a month on a switch. And so I never understood that. And because of that discontinuity, and they weren't unable to really address it very, very effectively, we didn't use it anymore. Same thing with MDM. I can see the value's there to justify paying. I think we pay anywhere from I think $3 to $4 or $5 a month for MDM products, but to have it be pennies, because again, it is mobile phones are such a boxed in ecosystem, especially if you're dealing with the Apple phones, that there's a finite number of combinations when compared to you're looking at a server or a desktop. You look at a registry there, and there's almost an infinite number of combinations you can do to run that thing and make it work. Why is it so much more expensive to support and to monitor than it is a desktop? So from a purely numbers standpoint, I think they're headed in the right direction, and this could make a significant impact to MSPs that are using their products, or even that are evaluating it, because it's going to leave others that don't have that feature set simply in the dust. I mean, they're going to have to claw their way back to try to compete with a product that has such a deep feature set within it that allows you to manage way more of the devices that clients use.
Very interesting stuff. Very interesting, and we'll have to see if they are successful with that. But it certainly sounds like it's something that you would be interested in for sure, and that others would probably be as well, especially if that pricing holds true.
Yes, I hope my vendors are listening.
So they said that's coming in November, correct?
Correct.
So I guess we will keep an eye on that story, and when that's officially unveiled later on in the year, we will we'll kind of revisit this and come back to it and see if everything lines up the way they are saying, and get some reaction then. I think that's it for Kaseya news. I know it's a lot of Kaseya this week, but it's a lot of Kaseya stuff going on right now. Anything else, Kaseya, before we move on?
I think we can move on.
So the last thing we're going to talk about before we break for our interview is we're going to be talking about the right combination of industrial adhesives to actually physically glue your customers to their office floors so they can't escape. Is that the right take on this story, Rich?
No. Would you like me to maybe reposition that a little bit?
Well, it says getting sticky with it. I thought we're talking about glue. No, we're not talking about glue.
No, we're not. We're not. And, getting sticky with it can also be read getting sticky with IT. I can take no credit whatsoever for the story that we are about to discuss here, except for the idea that we should develop a story about this. And I put it into an issue plan. And then I came up with what turned out to be its title. I always come up with some sort of little placeholder title in the grid for an issue. But in this case, the one that I came up with actually got used, and that title is Getting Sticky with It, so it's an article about stickiness, which is a topic topic that we discuss a ton, MSPs in particular, anyone in a subscription business. How do you get a sticky relationship with your customers? We spoke to a number of awesome managed services consultants and MSPs who we know provided insights on that. Actually, one of the things, just to kind of set it up, this is an issue worth thinking about and worrying about, people, because the author of this piece found some research that said that 35% of small businesses and 57% of medium-sized businesses had changed their IT service channel partner in the last 12 months. So there is a bit of a stickiness problem out there in the channel right now. And so we wanted to develop a story about best practices for getting stickier with your customers. And it's a really strong piece, a lot of detail in there. So we're going to link to it in the show notes. And I strongly encourage people to read the whole thing. But just to kind of hit a few highlights, one of the things that I thought was really interesting that we got from these experts we spoke to was choosing the right clients, like thinking, being thoughtful about who your clients are. Because if you are picking people in particular vertical industries, for example, or customers that are more willing to invest in IT than those that aren't, you're probably going to provide a better experience to them than you are if you're just, randomly opening the door to whoever comes through. The more you can kind of get to know your customers, and the more you can make sure that your customers are somewhat like-minded with you, the likelier you are to keep them happy over time. On the operational side, the behind-the-scenes side, obviously you need to get really smart about key processes, and especially the onboarding process. And folks quoted in the article, basically said, try onboarding yourself sometime. Onboard your business into your MSP and see what that experience is like and how well that goes. And if you see some areas for improvement, take advantage of those, because you're making a first impression during the onboarding process, clearly, and so you've got to get really good at that. That's part of a sticky relationship. But somebody else also pointed out, make sure that the operational side of your business and the sales side are in sync. I mean, it sounds really obvious, but make sure that the stuff that the sales folks, and that could be you, are promising to your customers is what the ops folks, the technicians and so on, are actually going to deliver. Because if there's any mismatch there, it's going to leave people feeling like this isn't what I signed up for or was expecting, and that's going to be a satisfaction issue. And then another thing that came up that, and this isn't an issue I haven't spoken about probably in a long time, but it's one that I think MSPs, especially in the early days, really struggled with, which was this idea that I'm providing proactive IT support. If I'm doing my job, nothing breaks. And therefore, as far as you know, I'm not doing anything, right? It's like everything's just working great. So why am I paying you exactly? And so what you have to do is figure out a way to show the customer all the stuff you're doing that's invisible to them, that's responsible for them not having a problem. And this becomes part of a sticky relationship as well, as in a non-obnoxious way, just kind of showing them here's what's involved in making sure that you don't hear from you're not calling me with a problem very often. And then the other thing to do as well that too few MSPs probably do is just solicit feedback. And you do that obviously through a phone call during a quarterly business review. There are tools like Smileback, for example, which I think is ConnectWise owns now, that can do this as well. But make sure that you are asking on a regular basis, how are we doing? And where could we do better? Because you really don't want to be surprised that a relationship you thought was sticky was less sticky than you thought.
Very, Angel, you looked through this, I'm sure. Any highlights out of this article that you wanted to kind of point out? Because there's a lot here. We're not going to cover all of it. But if there's any highlights that you found interesting.
Yeah, the entire article was full of just meat instead of just milk. I mean, there is so much I could say on this, from choosing the right clients. It all gets down to attitude at the beginning. They say as something begins, so it ends. If it begins sloppy, it's going to end sloppy, right? If we onboard sloppy, we're going to offboard sloppy, and even through the sales process, if you come in unsure of yourself as a salesman, and if you come in thinking that you're there to get a, to get a sale and that you really need that sale, you're going to be treated as such. But I just had a great call with a prospect yesterday, and I basically just was sincere to them and say, listen, I know you're looking at other MSPs. We're not like them. The only way you're going to find that out is if we have a conversation, and I'll be honest with you, I'm looking to figure out if I want to do business with you. So I'm going to need to have a conversation. And so when you differentiate yourself like that, that creates a level of stickiness, because right from the beginning, that client is going to be expecting something different from you. Now, the key there, you mentioned alignment, right? There has to be an alignment, because if you come in with that attitude and then the rest of your organization behaves differently, that's not going to match. So there's got to be an alignment between the sales process and the operational processes, and we're always gathering feedback from our clients on what we can do better, and we're also gathering feedback from our team. So our team, they are servicing clients, they are hearing they're hearing any frustration, and then they're giving us feedback. I don't know if you have a chance to look on my LinkedIn lately, I've been posting pictures of sticky notes all over our conference room, and we're kind of doing a low tech Kanban type of thing on our walls to realign our support process, to take all the feedback we've had and add it and redesign it. And everybody's participated in this. Everybody that touches a ticket has had a chance to give feedback in it. And the end result, we're discovering that we can actually close tickets a lot faster and more effectively, not efficiently, but effectively. That again creates that stickiness. Our clients, the feedback they give is, they're always attentive. They're always answering the phone quickly. They're knowledgeable, and all those things, we can build them into processes. So it's stickiness isn't just one thing that you do. It is the result of everything that you do. And you can use gimmicks to be sticky, or you can just design an entire organization, or you can use contracts to be sticky. Okay, some folks prefer to use a contract to lock somebody in and create stickiness that way, but that just generates resentment. I would much rather design a process that delivers service in such a way that somebody doesn't want to leave, or they have to sit here and think about, do I really want to take the risk of switching organizations, or do I just want to pick up the phone, call Angel, and let's see if we can work this out?
Yeah, it's one thing to kind of try to lock people in weird ways, but if you can be so good that you don't have to have those those gimmicks in place, that says a lot to a customer. That, wow, you believe in yourself that much that you don't have to lock me in with all this weird stuff because I'm going to choose to stay with you. That's a powerful message and statement.
Right. Even our contracts, they have a 30-day out where, if there's an issue and we can't resolve it in 30 days, they don't have to go the term of the contract. So, I want a commitment from the client that we're going to work together so that there's no surprises, and I can count on that revenue for 3 years or however long, so I can make my business decisions, hire somebody, or give Fred a 3-year contract and get a discount from him. But at the same time, I still have to deliver. And so out of respect for the value that the client is entrusting me with, I want to be sure and provide them with value as well, and give them a way out. So respecting the client is big when creating agreements and building that stickiness. You don't want the agreement to be the only thing that keeps the client there.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. And there's lots of other good info in this article. Unfortunately, we do have to move on to our interview, but folks, all of the news that we've talked about in this article, go to the show notes page for this episode 229. And we'll put links to all of these, so you can kind of read along and get all the information. If you're on your phone, open up the description area. Usually it's in there on your phone. Or if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit all the buttons, just all of them. Press them all right now. Leave a comment and open up the description area there in YouTube, and we'll put the links for you there as well, so you can kind of go and read along and get all this great information and detail that we're not able to kind of cover in depth here on the show, but it's all there for you. But we're going to move on. This is an exciting show. This is also the first, I think we've set a channel record. We've said the word sticky more times on this episode than any previous episode. So that is exciting, but that's not all that's exciting. We've got an exciting interview coming up. Colleen Frye, Managing Editor ChannelPro, is going to be joining us, as well as David Rose from Rose Computer Technology Services is going to be here. It is an awesome interview. You're not going to want to miss it. Stick around. We'll be back in just a second. Are you an MSP who is recommending Dell hardware to your end users? If so, then you'll want to check out the Dell Expert Network. The new Dell Expert Network program is a rewards and incentives program designed for service-focused MSPs who are supporting the small business market. This program is designed to deliver value and save time for MSPs who are recommending their end users to purchase Dell hardware. Currently, Dell Expert Network customers get an additional 3% back in Dell rewards when they buy Microsoft servers. Check out the Dell Expert Network today. And welcome back to part 2 of this episode of ChannelPro Weekly. Angel Rojas is still here with us after the break here. And boy, we have got a great guest interview lined up for you today. And as a special treat, our very own Managing Editor Colleen Frye is here to introduce our interview guest and set up the discussion. Welcome, Colleen.
Hello, Matt. Thanks for having me today.
Always great to have you on. It's always a pleasure when you're here with us. And now for some of our audience who may not have caught a past episode where you were part of a segment or joined us, tell us a little bit about you and what you do at ChannelPro.
So as you said, I'm the managing editor. So I write, I edit, I work with our freelance staff and our designer to get the magazine out, get stories on the website, basically keep the trains running. And I've been around really since issue 1 in a freelance capacity and joined full-time in 2017.
And I will be the one to personally attest to all that there is not a finer managing editor in all of the land than Colleen. She is absolutely amazing at what she does. And it's always a pleasure to have her on and to join us. And she's, also smart as a whip and knows the channel really well. And just always a delight. So welcome. I'm gonna step aside and move out of your way and let you tell our audience why you're here and who's on here with us.
Okay, well, thank you, Matt. And as always, you're much too kind. So I'm here because back in May, I got to do one of the things that I love to do about being a journalist, and that is, hear people's stories and tell people's stories, because I've always believed that everybody has a story and they have to be sometimes brave enough or are happy enough or so full of pride that they're happy to share that story. And I was in Boston at the ASCII Success Summit event, sat down at a table to eat my lunch. Gentleman sat down beside me and asked if we could share the table, and we just started chatting. And before I knew it, he was telling me a wonderful story that I knew that I wanted to follow up on. And so I wrote a piece for our website. And without much further ado, I want to introduce David Rose of Rose Computer Technology Services from Vermont. And that fateful day at lunch, David chose to tell me that his company had just been awarded the 5th Annual Small Business Community Champion Award from Citizens Bank. And he was one of 30 companies chosen out of 11,000 from 14 states, including District of Columbia. And it recognized David's and his company's contributions to the community and to the, where he lives and the folks in need. And these are things that I love to write about, and I love telling David's story. But I'm going to let David introduce himself, and then we'll go through his questions. So David, please tell us about yourself and your company.
Thank you so much, Colleen. It's a real honor to be here and be participating. It was great to meet you. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Dave Rose, the founder and CEO of Rose Computer Technology Services. We're just celebrating our 25th year in business here in Vermont, which I realize I haven't really done a big marketing event around, which I need to do, right? I'm talking to my marketing team about that, but we've been serving local businesses for that time. And from day one, I built into our company culture because it was important to me to give back to the community. And it's hard to do this without getting emotional. I'm a very emotional person, but I think that Colleen saw that. I say that aside from my children and them graduating college, this award is the greatest achievement of my life, because what better to be recognized for than giving back to your community?
Mhm. So David, just tell us a little bit about the business before we dive into your award.
Sure.
You know, who you serve and, you know, what kind of services you offer.
Thank you so much. We are a managed service provider, and we are an information technology management company, handling small to medium-sized businesses. We're in Vermont, so almost everything is a small business, according to the SBA here in Vermont. And we specialize in cybersecurity. We've done a really good job of pivoting over the years. We were one of the first to lead with flat fee IT in our state. I remember at the annual Business Expo, I had a big banner, flat fee IT. Of course, everybody's doing it now, right? We have a strong focus on cybersecurity. What else can I tell you? We have a variety of customers. We do serve special markets, insurance, captive insurance, construction, finance, primarily because these are companies that understand risk. And today, we've really moved, as the industry has, from selling computers and managing technology to assessing and managing risk. That's really our job in today's environment. So working with companies that either have compliance requirements or understand that is a great blessing. It makes it easier for us to do our job successfully without having to constantly explain why this is necessary.
Mhm.
And I'm out there trying to get on social media and do public speaking to that effect anyway, because too many other small businesses don't understand the risk. And it's real in today's, I'm telling people, I'm predicting, we've been very fortunate in Vermont, but we've already seen it hit. A lot of people know that our big hospital here in Burlington, Vermont was breached. And it was costing them like $1.5 million a day while they recovered. So that opened people's eyes a little bit, but people still have the misconception that, they're too small and they're not at risk for their small business. And we're starting to see that businesses get breached. And I know we're going to see it a lot more. So whether or not they choose to work with us, of course, we would love it if they do choose with us, but if not, I want people to understand just how serious cybersecurity and being cyber resilient is in today's environment.
Right. And you've grown this company since 1997 to 12 people. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's correct. Now, so David, that day in May that you sat down with me and we started small talking, I asked you to tell me about your business. And as I wrote in my story, I expected you to tell me how big you are, or, how many employees you had, or how much customers loved you. And instead, you pulled out your phone and you said, I've just been awarded this award from Citizens Bank. So tell me why that was so important to you, and tell me a little bit about the award and what it is that they recognize.
So the award is, I think it's fantastic that Citizens Bank does this. Wouldn't it be awesome if every bank in our nation did this, right? It's not like they're not making any money. So they chose to do this 5 years ago, and as you said, they select 30 companies. I became aware of it through probably email marketing from my bank. They're a bank that I do business with, and saw the application and submitted my application. And we're the only company in my state to have won this award. And we were given the award basically because myself and my company have been involved in giving back to local charities, for many, many years. I know that Angel is doing things, internationally, having limited means. And, when I started my business, I really decided that I wanted to do something that was going to make a difference right here in my local community. And there was a couple of organizations that I took a look around at who was doing what. We have a pretty big homeless population in Vermont for a number of reasons. I mean, a lot of people do. I mean, part of that is because of the laws in Vermont and how favorable it is for, for homeless people. But we have some incredible organizations that are helping the homeless people. And I thought, what a better way if I'm going to be able to give a small amount of money or whatever I can do to devote my time to help people here in my community that are in the most need, right? And these are people. So I started with a nonprofit called Spectrum Youth and Family Services. And I've been participating in their events. I did their annual sleep out where, they help the homeless people, and they take mostly teenagers and young adults, but also families that are homeless, and they turn their life around. I mean, not only do they give them shelter and emergency shelters and a place to sleep, but they give them counseling, they provide training, they help them find jobs, they help them get through school. You know, and some of the stories that you hear of what they do are just incredible. You know, just imagine being, you know, a teenager turned out on the street, you're in high school and your parents kick you out and you've got nobody else in your family and suddenly you have no place to go. And it's winter, you're in Vermont. You know, it's heartbreaking to conceive of what it would be like for that. It's almost inconceivable. So the idea of the sleep out is just that. So to really connect you to what their everyday experience is like. They take a day in the month of March, you know, when it's typically snowing and cold and the wind is blowing, and you commit to it and you sleep out with the clothes on your back and a sleeping bag, you know, and they put up a tent that doesn't come all the way to the ground just to keep the snow from falling on you. And they've always done it at the top of Church Street in Burlington at a church, you know, but it's grown so much, and then that there's too many people doing it now, plus COVID hit, so we had to change it up a little bit. But the idea is to survive a night, and they typically did it on a weekday, so you know what it's like to try to sleep outside, then get up and go to school, go to work the next day. So that's something, as I said, when you interviewed me, now I sponsor all these, my company sponsors all these events, that and the Cons Walk and several others, you know, because I'm in a position where I can give back financially. When I started, I wasn't in that position. I was a small businessman growing a business. I had a growing family. I didn't have a lot of money to donate, but I had time to donate, and I had business customers that I thought that I could help raise money, you know, and that's really the message that I want to share with people, is that whatever you have going on in life, you don't have to have a lot of money to donate necessarily, but you can always give of your time. You know, you can always make a difference in your local community.
And David, I know that another organization that you work with focuses on food insecurity. So tell us a little bit about that organization in Vermont as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear it. Focuses on what?
Food insecurity. So the soup bowl, the empty bowl dinner.
Right, so that both of them do, that is the same organization. That's Spectrum Youth and Family Services. So it's another one of their fundraisers. It's called the Empty Bowl Dinner, which is another fantastic idea. They're very creative in the way they raise monies. They're also, you know, if you look at statistics of nonprofits, the amount of money that goes into administration compared to other nonprofits is very small. All the money goes right back to the needy. So the Empty Bowl Dinner, they get local potters and craftsmen to create a bunch of bowls, and they get local restaurants to donate soup, and you buy a plate for the dinner. You know, I would typically take my whole company, buy 10 seats at a table, it's $60 a seat or whatever it is, and all the money goes directly to Spectrum, and the food is provided, and it's just a great event. You know, and typically they have one or more people that they have helped stand up and tell their story, or they have a video of them explaining, you know, how they've turned their life around. And it's growing every year. The sleep out has gone over the 9 years that I've been participating in. They raised over $400,000 with the sleep out last year. And now it's caught on, so that some of the children, the people that were doing it, high school kids, wanted to get involved. So now that it's kind of grown, and now they have, you know, additional sleep outs for the younger children to participate and get involved and learn to start giving back.
David, from my experience talking with lots of folks in the channel, including Angel, IT business owners and MSPs are very charitable, and they do a lot for the community. Sometimes lots of things we don't know about, which is what I love to highlight. But when I sat down with you that day, you know, you were sitting down with a reporter from ChannelPro. You could have really focused on your successful business. Why did you share that with me, this award?
Well, as I told you, I've known Joel from your magazine for many years, because I've seen him at all the events. And I always ask him, so Joel, when are you going to write, you know, when are you going to give me the cover? When are you going to feature me? He goes, send me an article to tell me what's something special about you, you know. And I've always was challenged by that. So when you told me that you were ChannelPro, I said, this is something, I finally have something that's really special about me and my business that I can share with you, that I'm very proud of. I mean, I'm proud of the work that we do with our businesses, but this means much more to me. And I think it's a more important message. You know, as I say to some of these customers, because we have become the IT departments for some of these organizations as well. And I say to them, I love working for nonprofits that are doing good things in the community, because it gives my work meaning. It's great to be fantastic at cybersecurity and provide information technology and help businesses stay safe and help them grow and meet their needs. But it's a really good feeling to know that I'm doing that for somebody that's giving back to the community. So that's why I chose to tell you about it.
And your message of, you don't have to be a big donor. When you're starting out as a small business, you gave your time. And that's the message that you're telling your fellow IT business owners, that they can give time as well as money.
Exactly. So I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't always in a position where I could give money. And, I see other things happening in the world and I'm like, I want to say something. I don't know how to affect change here. What do I do? And in many cases, there are nonprofits and advocates that are much more expert than I or you are in whatever that cause that you believe in may be. So if you have money, it's typically great to identify who's doing the good work that you believe in and contribute to them, because they're, boots on the ground closer to whatever it is that you're trying to affect change in. In this case, if you don't have money, what else can you do to help people? And you can do that. And the other thing is that it teaches other people. I mean, just think how much better your community would be if a higher percentage of business owners and people that participated in local events to help those in need. So that's another part that I'm proud of, is that I've encouraged my employees, some of them young, all different ages, to get involved. I don't require it, but the idea is to have it grow every year. Just like in everything, in sports and any competition, you can't always guarantee what other people are going to do. You can't always go into something thinking that you've got to win, but you can go into it knowing that you're going to do your best and you're going to do better than you did the previous time. And that's the same thing is true here. We've got more people in our company participating and getting their families involved, getting their friends involved. I think that's a wonderful thing.
David, how has this contributed to shaping your culture there and, making it a place that people are happy to work at?
How did it? I'm sorry. I had a little trouble hearing you. I'm not sure if it's your mic, but sometimes I'm having trouble understanding what you're saying.
I'm sorry. I'm wondering
to my culture.
Yeah, how has this sort of shaped your culture there?
It builds a sense of team. If you haven't done it, if you haven't taken your team to, whatever, go and spend the night serving a meal to somebody, or whatever it is, doing a walkathon, it's something that you can do together outside of work. Without pressure of talking about work or it's just something that you can do together. That's number one. Number two, I tie it in because it's part of my company culture. You can see it on my website. Family first. Put, what's more important, CSAT or ESAT? Employee satisfaction or customer satisfaction? And I would argue that employee satisfaction is more important to your overall success and the health of your organization. If you're not taking care of your own people, how are you going to take care of your customers? Let alone, it's also important today in today's world where it's hard to find people. It's hard to find good people, right? You want to make sure that when you find somebody and invested in them, they are motivated to stay and work with you. So that became a really important part of my company culture. I remember when I started growing the business, I hung a shingle when I started my business. I had no capital and I just kind of grew quickly. In 6 months, I hired somebody, then I took on space. And for many, many years, I'd try to find a good technical person. And then there were other gigantic competitors that had so much more resources. They could offer $25,000, $30,000 a year more than I could possibly afford to pay. And that was really challenging. So being no longer being in that position, being in a position where I can pay people what they deserve and can be competitive, it's a nice thing. But to build into the culture, I also think that the younger generation in particular, it's different, than it is for my generation. A lot of people really they choose a company where the company is making a difference in the world, whether they be a nonprofit or they're a B corporation. It's kind of like Apple says, what is the why behind you? Why are you doing what you do? And if they feel that there's a strong mission that your business is providing in that why, then you're more likely to get good candidates. So that's important to me as well.
Angel, I wondered if you wanted to jump in here with anything to add to what David said about culture and giving back.
Yeah, it's it's funny you mentioned that, Dave. I have a similar story starting up where we had behemoths. I mean, I'm in the shadows of ConnectWise, the MSP here in Tampa. So we had, behemoths here in the area that could pay way more. And so ultimately, people come work here because of how we care for our employees, how we care for our clients, and how we care for our community as well. So a lot of times a paycheck isn't all that, we think we need to always provide the top pay and all that, which that's very important. We have to be competitive in the market. People do have to live, but there is a bigger aspect. And if your company doesn't have a soul, if your company doesn't bring back something to the community other than just an economic value, people don't really engage. Folks don't really want to engage. They might be there for a season and then move on and find somebody that does give back to the community. So you're absolutely right. The small guys, the startups have to find different ways to attract talent. And by involving ourselves in the community, it's a great differentiator.
Richard, Matt, did you have anything you wanted to ask David?
Well, one thing I want to ask, Angel, take a couple minutes and just tell us about some of the things that you do in your community that in ways that you give back with your company.
Sure. So Dave alluded to some of the international work that we did, and that was a couple of opportunities that I had with a local friend of mine that developed a relationship. But my passion is also to give back within the community, because like Dave, this is where my employees live. This is, where their families are. This impacts them. So one area that we're really passionate about is children, and in particular, foster children. So last year we gave and we're involved with an organization that places families, connects them with foster children, prepares them to foster, and supports them through the fostering process. And if you're not familiar with fostering, that's when a court takes parental rights away temporarily while a parent is able to get back on their feet. And those children, or that child, has a need to be in a home. And so to align with an organization like that is caring for the most vulnerable in our community, that is really, really neat. The organization's called A Door of Hope. Additionally, with what happened in the Ukraine, we had local families that were actually arriving from there. So I like to network. And one of the reasons I love to network is because I get a wind of a need. And Dave mentioned in his interview that meeting needs is really what counts. And so when this family came into town, they needed some computers, and guess what? We kind of do that. So so it was nice to be able to use our talents and our gifts to minister and bless another family. And I'm always looking for what in the community, what need is there. And obviously there's a lot of technology needs out there. So it gives my guys the opportunity to literally do their craft, but do it for a greater purpose, not just for the dollar. And a lot of times I pay them for it too. So so if they do it during the business day, it's a ticket, and it gets done and it gets tracked. So, and they get paid for it as well. And I love to be able to do that. It gives them a break from the regular grind of doing anything. And it really gives them a purpose for what they're doing. So they go the extra mile for whenever we're building those systems or preparing them to donate to a family. And we join forces with clients to do that too. So clients will donate their computer, and instead of us charging them a fee to dispose of it properly or anything, we'll say, hey, if you want to buy us some hard drives, we'll rebuild the system, we'll prep it, and we're going to make sure it gets to a home or to a child that needs it, or somebody that needs that. So again, we get to be so creative because of what we do on how we can involve ourselves in the community.
Well, involving your clients is a really smart thing to do, right? Because that but not only builds goodwill with your clients, but also shows that you're doing a lot of great stuff in the area as well. And that's gotta help with some of the stuff we were talking about on the show earlier about being sticky, right?
Right.
It's one thing to be a good business partner, but it's also another thing to be to build a kind of relationship where it's deeper than just business. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It would be foolish to think that social impact only affects our employees. Our clients also want to make an impact in the world. Their employees also want to make an impact in the world. And, we're not just keeping the owners of our clients happy. We're also keeping their employees happy. So when they see that engagement, it just creates such a tight sense of community that it absolutely hits on stickiness.
Very neat, David. I want to come back to something that you said that I personally deal with as well, because I do a lot of volunteer work in my community as well, and it's always interesting when people say, like, money is one thing. It's one thing to donate money, and that's always a good thing. If you're gonna do nothing or donate money, donate money. But where we struggle with a lot of the work that we do in the community is getting people to donate time. Right? Money, giving somebody money is easy, but giving somebody your effort is just another level. What things do you do to kind of help spur that type of involvement with the work that you're doing?
I'm trying to think of how to answer that question. It's like, I tell the stories to my employees and to people that ask and that want to hear about it. People that are, and the people that are contributing, whether they're giving $50 or $100 or whatever. It's always like, hey, why don't you come do this with me next year? Bring your company. If the same thing I told you about how it feels good. I guess on a somewhat related note, I was telling my father's 87, and he's alone now. And I'm like, so do something for somebody else. When my mom passed, it was very, very hard on him. And he was, I get to see him, but he's lonely and he's depressed. They were married for 59 and a half years. Can't imagine, God bless, and he just misses her terribly. And I said, so look around, you've got so much things going for you. Look around the people that don't have that, and take some of your time to make their life better. And I guarantee you, it'll make you feel better.
That's amazing. Well, it goes to say, if you're standing and you have $1 million and no labor, it's still hard to get things done, right? So that's important. And what a great message to go out there. Now, your prize that you got, this award kind of came with some prize money. I was reading through the article and it said that you haven't decided what to do with it. Are you still on the fence, or did you finally make a decision? What did you decide to do?
I decided on how to spend some of it, not all of it. So I've already taken $2,000 of the $10,000 and shared it with my employees that have been participating and doing this with me on a regular basis as a bonus and a thank you and an encouragement. I've decided to take $1,000 and give it to another local organization that I know is doing these types of things in the community and teaching it to children, young, even pre-teens, and getting them involved and doing all the food drives and doing all this stuff. So I'm going to share $1,000 of it with that organization. And I've allocated another $2,000 to help me find another good employee that has this kind of focus. I'm really hoping that having this, getting this award and kind of putting this cultural value out there might help us find other great candidates to be on our team. The remaining $5,000 is not yet decided, but I've been considering doing some kind of a contest, and again, pay it forward to find another nonprofit that's in need, to write some sort of an application that has yet to be determined. But I have gotten that far in the process.
Very interesting. Rich, anything that you'd like to share or add?
Yeah, well, one thing, I've been looking forward to this conversation ever since I read Colleen's great piece, David, in part because it really kind of made me think after reading it. There are probably people in our audience out there who aspire to do more in the community, but they don't know where to begin. They don't know what to do. You've already kind of said, hey, look, if you're not in a position to donate money yet, time is at least as valuable. But if you were to give any advice to your peers on just where to start, how to begin, if you've listened to this conversation and it has inspired you to do more for your community, but you don't know where to begin, where should they begin?
The important thing is to begin. Just do it. Almost every place has a soup kitchen, has some place that always has need. And don't let, the number one thing with dealing with grief or dealing with any situation that's challenging is show up. I don't know what to say. I'm nervous. It's going to be hard. Show up. That's the number one thing. So, and step out of your comfort zone. You don't have to look hard. I'm sure there's some place within a few blocks of your business, if you have a business, where somebody could use help one evening or one afternoon. So just go and do it and then see what happens.
David, please share the story of, when the first time you went out of your comfort zone and you slept outside and it didn't go as you had planned, but it really drove home what people go through when they're homeless.
Thank you for asking. I laugh because I don't want to scare people away from doing the sleep out. So the very first year I show up for the sleep out, I didn't know what I know now, and it's evolved over time. So I just showed up with the clothes on my back and a sleeping bag. And we go inside to the church and they do a little program where they tell you about what they do, and they have somebody that they've helped tell their story, very powerful. And they give you a big piece of cardboard and they send you outside to go and mark your spot under the tent. And then you go and kind of mingle and talk to people. And there's other business owners that I know. So, and one of the company sponsors that I've given out like water bottles, they give you a hat and things like that. So I filled up my water bottle and I picked my spot, and it was like 9 degrees and it was windy. It was cold. And I put my water bottle on top of my sleeping bag, on top of my cardboard, and I go and I visit for people within an hour. And it's like 9 o'clock. Okay, time to turn in. I come back and the water bottle has leaked straight through my sleeping bag, through the cardboard. Everything is frozen, wet, but I'm not going to go back inside. I was determined to make it through the night. It was miserable. So I got up at they opened the doors, I think, for breakfast at like 5:30 in the morning, but I stayed through the night. My wife came to pick me up and I was almost hypothermic. I was shivering. That was the worst year of them all. I didn't make the same mistake twice in the next years, but that's the story.
But I'm sure it really drove home to you how some people have to make it through a Vermont winter night.
Yeah, and that next day, it's Maslow's triangle. It's hard. How can you focus on doing your job or doing your studies in school when you're hungry and tired and you didn't get a good night's sleep every night, and you have to think about you've got that insecurity of where am I going to stay tonight? Where am I going to get my next meal?
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you always check your water bottles now going forward to make sure they're not leaking before you set them down.
I don't put them on my sleeping bag or my bed.
No water on the bed. Angel, any other last comments or thoughts from you? Anything cool that you've done like that?
Yeah, Colleen, you mentioned that you've talked to a lot of MSPs and folks in the channel, and you found just a similar generosity, and that got me thinking. I think that's a character trait of a lot of us, that we just have this hero mentality that we want to go and fight on behalf of our clients, and we want to do right by our clients. A lot of IT people I know are like that as well. And it just, this is like the natural progression of it, just that natural tendency to just do the right thing, find a need, and meet it. And it's just really cool to see it, all through our channel, all through the community, and see that we all just share this desire to really help others, and not just be here and exist for a paycheck or a payout, which is great.
Great. Well, I want to thank David again for sharing his story with me. It was truly a privilege to share a meal with you that day and to hear about your work. And I thank you for joining us on the podcast. And I thank Matt and Rich for inviting us on. And I will send it now back to you, Matt.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Colleen, for coming on, and a big thanks to David again for it was a really great interview. I'm sure we inspired a few folks out there. David, for those who maybe want to learn a little bit more about some of the work that you do, or how to get started, or some advice with getting more involved with the community, or some thoughts on how you can spend that $5,000, I'm sure everybody's got ideas for that. I was going to recommend an air fryer for the employee break room, because those make French fries that are healthier, supposedly. But if somebody wants to get a hold of you, where can they go? How can they connect with you?
Sure, thank you. rosects.com, like Rose Computer Technology Services. That's our website. And of course, you can find me from there. You can email me at drose@rosects.com. Glad to talk to any other MSP. As we say to our customers in today's cyber environment, we're all in this together, right? They can't do it without us. We can't do it without them. If you're not directly here in my marketplace, if you are, then let's do some charitable things together. And anybody else, anything I can do to help you, give me a call anytime or reach out to me.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope we get a chance to talk to you again down the road. Angel should be with us here on the other side of the break. Think you're sticking around, right, Angel?
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll be back in a few minutes. We're going to close out the show, maybe have a little bit of fun, lots of stuff ahead. Big thanks to Colleen Frye for coming on again, and I always look forward to seeing her in a future episode. So you never know when she's going to be on. So that's why you always got to tune in every week, because you never know when Colleen's going to join us. So stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes. And welcome back to part 3 of this episode of ChannelPro Weekly, number 229. Wow, what an amazing interview. That was awesome. So many good things to talk about from that. A couple things that I even want to highlight. Rich, let's start with you. Anything you want to talk about or highlight from that interview?
Well, actually, just one thing I want to call attention to, which is I don't want anyone to think that this was like some one-off thing Colleen wrote. Years ago, I was chatting with her at one of our events, and I sort of said, why don't you have a column? Like, you should have a column. That would be great. And she said, a column about what? And I said, I don't know. You tell me. And a few weeks later, she came back and she said, I want to do a column called Not for Profit that calls attention to great things that our readers and vendors out there are doing for their community. And so she's been writing these pieces on a regular basis ever since for a long while. And I will make sure to include a link to the not-for-profit page for anyone who, in the show notes, for anyone who wants to see some of her other pieces there. So this was just a recent example of something that she's been doing for us for a long time.
Very cool. Angel, anything that you want to highlight from that?
Just again, huge kudos to Dave, and really that spirit that seems to permeate our community and our profession, where we just want to help each other out and help out our communities and really serve each other. It's a great spirit to have, and it really is alive within our industry, and it makes me a very proud member of this industry.
Very cool. And I'll the one thing I'll point out, I mentioned it briefly, I think, during the interview as well, but sometimes time is more valuable than money, right? If you can donate, great, but if you can get involved and actually donate some of your time and effort, people are needed, effort is needed to get amazing stuff done. So don't be afraid to volunteer your time and to help your community, because that is super, super duper important. And hopefully everybody does. So it's really great stuff. Not only does it make sense for your business to kind of help give back, but it's good for your area and your community that you live in. So don't be afraid. And cool and good plug for the not-for-profit column. It's a good column. Everybody should check that out. Lots of good stuff that goes in that all the time. So here we are. We got a lot of things we could do, but during the break, Angel and I were putting our heads together and we're saying, we did a museum pick last week, and it was kind of fun. I love talking about gear, and I get excited when we get to talk about stuff. And he's like, "Oh, I have a cool one that I just got from. I'll let you tell the story of where you got it." And he's like, "I don't have it with me." And I'm like, "Well, what do you know? I have one of those. So I'll provide the visual, you provide the story, and we're gonna do like a tag team museum pick today." So, Angel, tell us the story of what you got and what it is, and then I'll show the visual.
Yeah, so I visited my good friend Herman Poole of Vertical Action. He's got an arcade in Huntsville, and so I visited him, and he sells all sorts of vintage arcade games there and whatnot. Now he did have to close it down for the pandemic, and now he's actually rebuilding it. So and somewhere else, it's gonna be bigger and better than it ever was. But I saw something from my childhood there that I had to have, and that was a Game Boy. So I got a little Game Boy Color, and it just happens to be purple, translucent purple. And I have here the manuals, and I don't have it here with me because my kids are playing with it. So it is something that we enjoy as a family to play the Game Boy. And it's a nice little connection to have from my childhood with the kids. They have the new Switch, and so for them to see some of the games, like I've got Tetris and what is the Super Mario Brothers Deluxe, and they play kind of the same games on the Switch. So for them, it's pretty cool. And Matt, if you want to bring up the translucent purple visual there.
I can. So I am holding what he says, actually the one that you got. It's the Game Boy Color with the purplish kind of translucent case. It just so happens that I happen to have one of these. I actually have many Game Boys. I even back way long ago, back in episode, I think we looked up 135. I talked about my original Game Boy that I have. I have the original 1989 big Game Boy that came with Tetris. You showed the little Tetris cartridge. This is one of the big reasons that they sold way, millions and millions and millions and millions of these things, was because of that. But the Game Boy Color came much later in the lifespan of the Game Boy and added color support, because those who remember the Game Boy, especially the original ones, the first Game Boy had like kind of this 4-shade greenish screen. It was like kind of ugly when you really think about it, but so you know what, you can get past that when the games are really good, and the games were really good at the time, so people kind of ignored that. Then there was the Game Boy Pocket that kind of changed the green to like more of a 4-color gray screen, but this one added color support. So a Game Boy cartridge could be made that would work on the old systems, but they could also add a color palette, so that way the games could be in color, which was kind of a big deal at the time. It wasn't a backlit screen. That didn't come until the much later in the Game Boy Advance lifespan, but they did have like the Game Boy Light. I think there was one that was but that was only in Japan. So there was one that I think that had a backlight built in, but that never was released in the United States. I'm kind of trying to test my Game Boy history here. Did you have one of these growing up, you said, Angel?
I had the original growing up, and really the only game I liked was Tetris. So I was happy to have Tetris again, and I bought the Mario game for my kids, because they're all into Mario and all that stuff. I never play Super Mario. I just sit there and play Tetris all day long if I ever get to play it, because usually it's my kids commandeering it.
So that's all you played was Tetris? You didn't play any other games?
No, just Tetris. Growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, and so my parents could afford to buy me the Game Boy, and that was it. And the Game Boy came with Tetris, so that's all I got to play.
Wow, there were so many good games, though. That's surprising. I might have to send you a list of some games you should maybe check out if you've got time.
So folks, we'll have to do that.
Yeah, I something that I might be able to send you. But I'd be curious for our listening and viewing audience, if you had a Game Boy or still have one and you like certain games, what was your favorite Game Boy game? So if you're on YouTube, leave a comment below. What was your favorite game on the Game Boy? What did you spend a lot of time playing? If you're listening, send an email to us, podcast@channelpro.org.com. We want to get your feedback and see if there's some popular games that kind of stand out. Because I like Tetris. I played a lot of Tetris, but I also played the Zelda game a lot. There were some Final Fantasy games on the Game Boy that were really, really fun. There was what else? What the games I put? There were so many. The Game Boy had so many games. It's hard to think back. The Wario game was really fun. I remember that one. But this one came out. I'm trying to remember. This was late in the Game Boy's lifespan. I'm trying to remember what year it was. They put a year on it. 1998. So this was 1998. Whereas the original Game Boy was like 1990. No, it's like Japan I want to say 1989. It was released to the US. I want to say in 1990 or 1991, somewhere in there. I'd have to go back and look that up. But the Game Boy was manufactured for like a decade. I mean, it was around forever because in part it had so many fun games. Rich, you had a Game Boy, right? I think we talked about that back in the day.
I did. I'm not sure where it fits into the lineage. I know it's older than that one. Very small display, no color. And it might be original or close to it. I'm trying to remember when I got it, because it was this was actually my very first job in the tech industry. I was working at this little company out here, and the boss gave everybody one of those as a Christmas gift one year. And so we were talking like 93, 94 maybe.
So maybe the Pocket, because they had one that was called the Game Boy Pocket, where it was smaller than the original, because the original one was kind of big. When you look at it, and even the colors, the Pocket was actually smaller than this one too. I had one of those as well, but I didn't grab it because we were talking about the Game Boy Color too. But exciting stuff. Very, very cool. Well, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that story. It's neat that you have. So we'll see what other people think about their favorite games, and who knows what other fun stuff we'll talk about here on ChannelPro Weekly. So yeah, Game Boy Color this week. Lots of fun. I don't have a tech pick this week because normally when we do a museum pick, I do a tech pick, but I didn't really plan for one. So I'll make one up. Angel, do you want to come up with a tech pick?
What's tech pick?
We some new piece of hardware that people can buy. I usually try to relate it to the Game Boy.
New piece of hardware. Let's see. New piece of hardware.
Ooh, I got one.
You got one?
Never mind. Yep. I haven't talked about it on the show yet. And it's kind of a neat one. So this was portable gaming back in 1989. You could play games like this on the go. Now, Nintendo does have a newer console. It's been around, I don't want to say newer. It's been around since 2017 or something like that. It came out last year, but very popular. Nintendo Switch. We've talked about that before. But what people may not know is that Valve, the company that operates Steam, has actually come out with a PC version to kind of compete to make PC gaming portable. I don't know if you've seen this, Angel. They have what they call the Steam Deck. Have you seen this before?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you've seen a Nintendo Switch before, right? Okay, so it's bigger than a Switch and a little thicker, but it has all the stuff kind of built in, and it's like a full PC on the go with from what I understand, pretty good graphics, built-in screen. It kind of looks Switch-ish, but it connects to your Steam library and allows you to play at least compatible games. And there's a lot that supposedly work, but it lets you play like PC games on the go, handheld. Comes in three different models. Yeah, isn't that neat? Comes in 3 different models. I can pull it up here and to get pricing and stuff. Because like I said, I wasn't ready for this. But
while you're pulling that up, I have a tech pick if you want to try something a little bit different.
Sure. You go ahead and
so in one of my hobbies, the RC helicopter hobby, the big announcement right now is that they have this little helicopter that comes with a landing pad, and the landing pad creates a virtual area inside or in the air that the helicopter does not leave, and that includes a floor and a ceiling, so you can safely learn to fly the helicopter. And if it wanders off, as soon as it hits that virtual wall, it will kind of come back and it can take off and land itself. So you can practice, and a beginner, anybody should be able to get right into it without having a lot of skill or experience. So maybe that'll introduce more people to the hobby.
Very interesting. Very cool. That does sound neat, because I know that would be a pretty cool hobby. Yeah. Awesome. So I did pull up the Steam Deck specs. It comes in 3 different models. They start at $399. There's a 64 gig model. There's a 256 gig model that's SSD, so it's a little bit faster. And there's a 512 model. Each comes with some different benefits and features like that. $399. I think the most expensive one is $649, if I remember correctly. But they're back ordered. They're hard to get, but they look pretty cool. They've got a full APU with Zen 2 graphics, and it plays stuff from your Steam, like PC gaming on the go. It's kind of cool without like being a laptop, like a portable handheld kind of thing. So it looks neat. We'll just send you to go to the Steam website. We'll put it in the show notes, so you can go and you can check out the Steam Deck if you are a PC gamer and you like the idea of playing your PC games, not on I want to say on the go, but you can do that with a laptop, but like in a video game console kind of form factor like the Switch, which is pretty cool. So check that out. Anyway, Rich, why don't you tell us what we might have missed last week and what's coming up next week?
Well, you know what? If you're wondering what you might have missed this week, a great thing to do is visit channelpronetwork.com every Friday, because you will find our In Case You Missed It post there by our own James Gaskin every Friday. This week, James has got some new password sharing functionality from the password security folks at Keeper Security. Joseph Contreras of Epson, who joined us as an interview guest on this very podcast 2-ish years ago, I think, has gotten a big promotion. You can read about that there. And then this is going to sound less appetizing than maybe it is. I'm not sure, but James has a few words for us about a whiskey out of New Hampshire that is made in part with invasive green crabs. If you're curious, in case you missed it, tomorrow, Friday, is the place to go. Coming up next week, and not a whole ton out there on the event calendar, but HPE is holding their Discover conference next week, and there will be news out of that conference. And I do know what it is, but I'm not allowed to talk about it yet. So tune in to ChannelPro Weekly next week, and I'm sure that will be somewhere on the agenda.
Lots of stuff. And ChannelProNetwork.com is the place you want to tune in. Go there each and every day. In fact, set it as your homepage. There you'll find all the latest news, white papers, articles, all that stuff to not only keep you informed of what's going on in the industry, but also to help you make more money and help you in your business, because we got lots and lots of good content for you, because that's what Channel Pro is all about. It's helping you. Always remember that. Of course, subscribe to the Channel Pro Weekly podcast, everywhere podcasts are found. Subscribe if you like to watch. We're on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the button, then you get to see some of the stuff that we talk about, which is pretty fun. And you can listen to us in the background there if you like as well. Great stuff. I want to give a big thanks to Colleen Frye for joining us for the interview. Big thanks to David Rose of Rose Computer Technology Services for coming on and talking to us about the interview. But also a huge thank you to Angel Rojas again for coming on and being our guest host. He's the president and CEO of DataCorp. I hope you had a good time.
Had a blast as always. Thank you very much.
And if somebody wanted to connect with you, learn more about your business, where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So the only social media that I'm on these days is LinkedIn. So linkedin.com/in/Angel JR DataCorps. And if you want to know more about me and what I do and some of the podcasts and whatnot that I've appeared on, datacorps.com/Angel. And so you can connect with me on either one of those. And again, I love to talk to my peers and discuss with them any insight I can give them. So please feel free to connect. Love to hear from you.
And he might even take Game Boy game suggestions of games that he should
absolutely
play, so.
Absolutely, I'll take the Game Boy game suggestions.
Awesome stuff. Well, thanks again for being on. It was great, and I hope we get you back again down the road. And with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off for episode 229. We'll be back next week with episode 230. Rich, any preview of what we got coming up on the show next week?
Next week, yes, we've got our guest host will be Vince Tinarello, an MSP from Denver who's been with us before on the show. Looking forward to that. And our interview guest will be Jennifer Bleem. There are going to be some folks out there who maybe know Jennifer from Carver Security when that company existed. It then got bought by Continuum, which got bought by ConnectWise. She is out on her own these days. She's a managed services consultant. She's got a brand new book out just within the last few weeks called Simplified Cybersecurity Sales for MSPs. And Jennifer's going to be on the show to talk about that book.
Awesome. You're not going to want to miss it, folks. And we will see everybody then in episode 230. Until then, take care.